Okay. Alright. Alright, that should be, we should be starting up any minute now. I think it should be. Oh, I want to make sure this is muted. Alright. Great. I got this working on the Patreon. That's neat. I'm Kevin Bay. Patrons, you may know me more as Kiva Bay, but I came out as a man, so I'm actually Kevin Bay, and I use he, him pronouns. If you didn't know that, now you do. Today we're going to be doing a lecture on Sailor Moon. Sailor Moon Episode 4, the one with the evil Jim. That's what I often call it. Because that is what it is. This episode was not aired in full in the United States, I believe. Or maybe it wasn't aired in the United States at all. I am having trouble finding whether it was aired in the States at all. We have the uncut version. I don't think it was the diet stuff that made people upset. I think it was probably the Luna threatening to cut Usagi's face part that made everyone upset. But we're gonna go ahead and talk about the episode anyway, because it's got some interesting stuff in it. So let's go ahead and bring up some clips. Fun stuff, right? Sailor Moon, in case you didn't So, there we go. There's some Sailor Moon, some opening to give you all some idea of what we're going to be talking about today. This is Sailor Moon episode, and we're not going to be watching the whole episode. We're just going to be watching some clips. The episode starts with Usagi weighing herself and feeling pretty freaked out. And you can see that this is not normal, because you see her whole family shows up like, what are you screaming about? So clearly this is, you see that Luna is making fun of her and saying that in 6 months she's going to be fat. So we see that this new weight-based teasing coming from Luna, which is constant throughout this episode. And it's weird because you don't see it in many of the other episodes. It's just in this one. This is a very bizarre episode. But as you all know, weight-based teasing can encourage people to have eating disorders. And I think we're going to probably see that some more in this episode. We'll probably come back to that at some point. So, this scene is incredibly interesting to me because there's a fat character. I mean, not a super fat character, not a very fat character, but interesting. Let's watch this scene.
私もね、いろいろ苦労してるもの。わかるわ。ねえ、うさぎ、水泳やんなよ。結構痩せるよ。ダメよ、この子泳ぎ下手なのよ。そっか。断食やパイナップル食べて痩せるなんていうのも効果が長続きしないのよね。私もいろいろ試してみたけど。わかるわ。こうしてスリムになるなんていうのが理想のダイエットよね。あんたこうしたことあんの？わかるわ。でしょ？ちょっとどういう意味よ？いいのいいの。姿形は生まれつきなんだから。あんたにだけは言われたくなかった。
So let's discuss this conversation between the girls, because I think this is really interesting stuff, to be honest. So it's interesting watching Usagi and her friends talk about weight, because there's a chubby friend, and this is interesting to me for a couple reasons. First, sometimes in media a character will be labeled as fat without having a significantly different body type from characters who are not labeled as fat, and this is especially clear in Azumanga Daioh, which is an anime that I really enjoy, that we're going to use as an example really quickly here. Really quick, which of these characters do you think is the fat one? Doom 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 doom. So time's up, pencils down. Who did you guess was the fat character? If you guessed Yomi, you are, I guess, correct. Yomi is the fat character in Azumanga Daioh. Yomi is the character who is consistently teased for being fat by Tomo. Yomi is the character who is labeled as fat or chubby. But weirdly, I don't actually think Yomi looks all that different from, say, Tomo or Kagura, or even Sakaki, even though Sakaki is taller. Like, she seems to have the same body as them, so that's unusual to me. But anyway, Yomi is the character. She's consistently teased as fat, she's consistently labeled as fat, and any of Yomi's athleticism in the show, her flexibility for instance, it's explained as being because she's soft or tubby. In this way, Yomi's body becomes an example of Lucy Irigary's concept of the femininity. Yeah, but like with an E with an accent on the end. So, quoting, "All liquids seem to take the shape of a container, remaining malleable. The male, therefore, can funnel female liquidity into whatever space is necessary within discourse. She thus can be made to serve as the essential outside of his thought. Yomi's body is not drawn significantly different from Kagura's body or Sakaki's, but because of the liquid malleable function of women's bodies in media, the male creator can label her body as fat, and she thus can serve the role as the fat character, because we'll just accept that, because we accept a woman's body is this kind of like liquid thing that will take whatever shape we want it to take. We can label it as fat, it will be fat. We can label it as curvy, it will be curvy. So it's interesting to me that in this scene in Sailor Moon, our chubby friend is visually readable as chubbier, fattier than Usagi and Naru or their third friend. Her cheeks are rounder, her body is thicker, she's visibly, readably fatter than the other characters. Because of that, this scene can be taken as an example of what Fanny M. Bjornson discusses in her essay Talk. In her essay Talk from Fat, the Anthropology of Obsession, she describes this kind of interaction between women, especially girls, as fat talk, and asks the reader to consider how it organizes and regulates social bonds between some women. So we can see this organization of the social hierarchy in this scene in the question. When the thin characters are discussing their need to diet or their troubles with dieting, they engage more fully with one another. When the fat character discusses her troubles with dieting, she's responded to kind of shortly, in chorus, and dismissively. So this is an example of what Pierre Bourdieu calls symbolic capital. The thin girls have the symbolic capital to discuss dieting as individuals. The fat girl doesn't. Ironically, she lacks the symbolic capital to participate in fat talk because she is, in fact, fat. So this understanding of symbolic capital is further driven home when the thin character lacks the symbolic capital to discuss falling in love and gets the same treatment as the fat character. But you may notice that she responds indignantly to this, whereas the fat character seems to accept that her treatment is normal. Huh. Oh wait, I think I need to turn Yeah, I do. Aren't I good at this?
Diet って言えばね、春田先生が急に痩せちゃったのよ。なんで？そう。皆さん、おはよう。プリン、プリン。痩せたってそんなに感じないけどな。
洋服着てるとわかんないんです。
This kid's a creep.
これ見てください。これが使用前で、こっちが使用後。プリン。
あら
それもたったの2日で。
海野、どうやってこの写真を？
I am with Naru.
企業秘密で。
So, let's talk about before and after images. How about? Because I think we got something we need to talk about there. Looking at my notes. So, Miss Haruna's before and after pictures, which let's just acknowledge that that's creepy, Umino. Umino, that's creepy. But they're a stark example of fat objection. So Leah Kent explains in Fighting Objection when discussing before images, quote, "Here the fat person, usually a fat woman, is represented not as a person but as something encasing a person, something from which a person must escape, something that a person must cast off. The fat body is once again caught up in a narrative of erasure. The before and after scenario both consigns the fat body to an eternal past and makes it bear the full horror of embodiment, situating it as that which must be cast aside for the self to truly come into being, i.e. abjecting the fat even on someone as thin as Miss Haruna." Continuing with Kent, who explains Kristeva's theory of abjection thusly, quote, "In Powers of Horror, Kristeva explains that the process of abjection is the act of primal repression that founds subjectivity and begins a sedimentation of identity around the newly forming self. The abject sets up the categories of self and not self, but it is an expulsion of something internal to the self. In this process, according to Kristeva, I expel myself, I spit myself out, I abject myself within the same motion through which I claim to establish myself. In this way, quote, the one haunted by abjection is set literally beside himself. The abject is what life withstands on the part of death." So Kent explains that, as in the before and after pictures, the fat body is endlessly present in its representation as past. It is drawn back, recalled, referred to again and again, only to be cast out again. And through that casting out, it forms the margins defining the good body, the thin body that bears the mark of the self's discipline. So we can see that in the before and after pictures that Umino has creepily taken, and because of these before and after pictures, the girls are like, well, we gotta go to this gym that Miss Haruna is going to because she lost a bunch of weight in just 2 days. That's weird, right? Just 2 days?
1日1キロ、2日で5キロ、3日通えばあなたは美人。さあ、みんなで仲良くしていったエステサロンステイプリンでは無料体験入学を実施中です。ただ
So, free membership. We can see this marking of thin as the future self with the subject that we must self-actualize ourselves into becoming, with the discussion from the billboard, the clip we just watched, saying that 3 days at Jim Shapley will lose you weight in this fashion. It's very mathematic, and it's based on a strict timeline. So there's a process to self-actualization that's clearly laid out for the girls.
と汗2キロ、下汗5キロ、見汗流せばあなたも美人。さあ頑張って。
ほいっしょ、ほいっしょ、ほいっしょ、ほいっしょ、ほい。ねえ、ウサギは？さっきまでボンとこぎしてたけど。
ほら、そこの君、サボってると美人になれないよ。せっかく素材がいいのに。
はーい、美人、美人、なるちゃんたら美人になるじゃん。
Okay, so Returning to Lebesco and beauty as citizenship, and what we learned about Wendy Chapkus and the idea of beauty being a moment forever framed by expectation and fear, can we understand Naru's motivation upon hearing that the way to become beautiful is to work out? It's presented comically, but there's something quite realistic about it, even down to the fact that beauty as a floating signifier can only be bestowed by a man. We see this problem all the time, with beauty being something that can only be bestowed by a man on a woman. But we're gonna see some more of that in this episode, and I wanted to give you some warning about that. But this is interesting. We're gonna watch 4 clips now, and as we watch them, I want you to consider that in the foreword of a Fat Studies reader, Marilyn Wan shares the statistic that 1/3 of people classified as obese would risk death or happily trade 5 years of their life to lose just 10% of their body weight. This may explain why people are willing to get parts of their stomach surgically amputated in order to lose weight. It may also explain why the girls here get into what is clearly an alien life-sucking pod. So let's watch these clips.
この中に入るのです。シェイプ光線を5分浴びれば太ったあなたなら10キロ、痩せたあなたでも3キロはすぐ減ります。
そっか、春菜が1日で一挙に痩せたのはこのせいなのね。私入る。私も。私だって。ジェダイト。
はい、ここにクイーンベリー様。
ジェダイト、守備は
ご心配なく、若き人間どものエナジーが着々と集まっております。
そうか、作戦を続けよう。
はあ、愚かな女たちは無意味に痩せたがっております。この作戦、必ずや成功するでしょう。
私、とっても寂れた。
皆さん見違えるほど美しくなりましたよ。
嬉しい。やったー。
超美人になりたければ明日もまたいらっしゃい。痩せるためには命をも削る若い女の子のエナジ
He's me. But anyway, so that's interesting, right? Like, consider that statistic that 1/3 of people classified as obese would risk death or happily trade 5 years of their life to lose just 10% of their body weight. Just 10%. I think that these clips together are a perfect example of that, even though they're fiction. I like that the girls are very much like, this is very obviously like a dangerous alien life-sucking pod, but you say it'll make me lose weight. Something about that honestly cracks me up. Like, it's so obviously like an evil plan. You know what I mean? Like, they look like something out of like an H.R. Geiger. Like, the pods look like, the Shape Ray pods look like something out of like an H.R. Geiger pic. And the girls are like, well, I do want to lose weight, so let me on in there, huh? Like, I shouldn't laugh, but I do think that part of this episode is so funny. Yeah, I'm sorry, you can't see my face because I am showing you clips of Sailor Moon. Oh, I'm going to go ahead and turn that off and put the text back on. Yeah, sorry. But let's watch this clip here and think about what we said earlier about how beauty can only be bestowed or even in some ways taken away by a man in a patriarchal society because it's so deeply linked to citizenship. So when we see like women, we should understand that, like, the beauty standards they're trying to live up to, even if those women are, you know, not interested in men whatsoever, the beauty standards that they're trying to live up to are controlled by men, because it's about more than just sexual currency. It's about more than sexual currency, because it's about citizenship, and it's about your status as a good, healthy person.
それにしてもお腹すいたな。ああ、セーラー V ちゃんはダイエットなんてしなくてもスリムで
危ない。どうしたウサギちゃん。
元木お兄さん。
気分でも悪いの？
え
病院へ行く？
いいえ、むしろレストランへ。
え？
昨日から何も食べてなくてお腹すいて。
Usagi hasn't eaten anything.
テストの点が悪くてママにご飯を食べさせてもらえないとか？
違います。ちょっとダイエットしようと思っただけです。
ダイエット？
そんなにおかしいですか？
ごめん。でも君はダイエットする必要ないよ。むしろもう少し太った方がいいくらいだ。僕なんかはガリガリのおやせさんよりむしろぽっちゃり型の方が可愛いと思うけどな。
本当ですか？
うん。
So, I think that scene is kind of important because, we can see again that, like, beauty can only be bestowed by a man. Like, the only way that Usagi is gonna feel better in this scene, even though she's just a 14-year-old little girl, is if the guy she has a crush on tells her that it's okay for her to be chubby. That's messed up. Like, men, we should not be the arbiters of beauty. We shouldn't be the gatekeepers of it. Like, especially not because beauty is a really important symbol for citizenship and full personhood. And the sooner we get around to accepting that, the better we're going to be as allies. So I hate Mamoru. I hate him. Tuxedo Mask. I hate him. What are you wearing? What are you wearing? It is none of his business. I hate this guy. You know what? We're gonna take a break from Fat Studies so I can tell you how much I hate him. Look at this fucking creep. I hate you. I hope you get hit by a car, dude. He really is a jerk. And look at this mean-ass cat. Kill the cat. So she's trying to, like, hold on to what Motoki said about chubby girls being cuter, and Luna's just like, hey. Go to hell, you cat. Anyway, there's something terribly wrong. Why didn't you lead with that, right? Like, it's interesting that Luna is so fixated on shaming Usagi for her weight that she's even like, I better get in a couple jabs about Usagi's weight before I tell her that there's an alien life-sucking pod that's got her teacher right now.
目標の量まであとわずかだ。
春田先生をそこから出しなさい。
何？
スリムになりたい乙女の夢を悪の心で踏みにじる女の敵を許せない。
やはりお前か。
ご存知、愛と正義のセーラー服
Okay, maybe you all can help me out here. Her arm just goes straight through her hair, right? Right there, right? It just phases right through her hair. That has bothered me since I was 14. So Luna's like, hey, these rings on their head. Why are there cash register sounds? But Usagi's not feeling it, and Luna's like, oh, you might lose some weight if you do it. girl who wants to lose weight is stronger than anyone.
ママも下手にダイエットなんてし
So
ない方がいいよ。
that was
そう
weird,
ね。
right?
下にも気をつけないと。
I did not pause that at all. Sorry about that. So that was freaking bizarre, was it not? I think that this is probably one of the weirdest episodes of an anime I've ever seen. And I've seen some really weird episodes of an anime, but what I mean by weird is that it has a really confused narrative. What's interesting is that this episode will really go off on how ridiculous dieting is. Like, weight loss is a tool that's being used by the Dark Kingdom to harvest energy from teenage girls. From, like, alien life-sucking pods that, like, pretty clearly are not good, and people are just like, oh, but it'll make me lose weight. So it almost feels like this is like an incisive kind of satire that makes this like interesting comment. But then at the end, it's like, I always remember this line from an American Music Club song: you were on the right track, but you were like a lamb jumping for the knife. Like, this episode was so on the right track, but then at the end, it ends with kind of this message that, like, oh, but weight loss is motivating and will make you strong, and the hero's gonna use her motivation to lose weight, to, like, get out there and punch some bad guys and get the cash register rings off their head. But then the episode ends really strangely.
下手にダイエットなんてしない方がいいよ。そうね。ウサギも気をつけないと。
That's a good mom.
お姉ちゃんは大丈
That's a
夫だ
bad
よ。
brother.
太った。また太っちゃった。あんなに太ったのに。
Now we know, of course, that the reason why is likely because you gain muscle as you work out. But also, it's interesting that Usagi is tormented by the scale. She can't escape the scale. No matter what she does, the scale can ruin her day. And I think that's common for a lot of people. I think that this episode shows us something kind of almost too relatable. Almost too real. I hate Mamoru. Do we hate Mamoru? I hate Mamoru. He's just the worst. First of all, he's like 20 to her 14. I'm sorry. I'm being a Sailor Moon fan, and I'm gonna stop doing that and going off at you about how much I hate this creepy older man who really has no business bothering this 14-year-old girl. Like, when I was in college, I didn't bother any kids in middle school. I want to be clear about that. When I was in college, when I was 20, I wasn't hanging out with 14-year-olds. Like, that's weird. Don't hang out with 14-year-olds when you're 20. It's like every mainstream media article reporting on studies demonstrating how weight loss isn't possible long term. They always report that finding and then say, but of course you should still try. I know that, Rosie, that's an excellent point, and it's so bizarre to me. Like, I never understand, because it's... Doctors understand that, like, losing 5% of your body weight long term is basically all you can really hope for from weight loss, speaking statistically. And even then, there's a 90 to 95% failure rate. So, like, the 5 to 10% who do successfully lose weight long term, all they lose is like 5 to 10% of their body weight. I don't know, the whole thing just seems ridiculous to me. I can't believe, like, this conception we have that, like, you're gonna lose pounds every day and, you know, you're gonna get so skinny so fast. I almost like that this episode is really good at showing that losing weight that fast is not healthy or good. That's a sign that, like, evil people from the Dark Kingdom are stealing your energy. You don't want to be a pawn in Queen Beryl's schemes. Anyway, what did we all think of this episode of Sailor Moon? We didn't watch the whole episode because, I mean, I'm pretty sure there's laws against me just live streaming a whole episode of Sailor Moon to my patrons. That seems shady. But I wanted to show you some clips from the episode because, like, when I try to describe this episode to people, I can't because it's so bizarre. So bizarre. Oh, no. No, go put your kid to bed, and thank you so much for dropping by. Have a wonderful evening. Yeah, no, thank you for dropping by. You all are super great. I'm gonna try to do one of these live streams just for patrons, once a week. So, like, next Saturday, we'll do probably another pop culture analysis. I've done a bunch of pop culture analysis through a Fat Studies lens already, but I'm having a lot of fun putting together live lectures on these subjects. So we'll get into either some Doctor Who, or some House, or some Law and Order SVU, or that awful Russian movie Branded, or that Black Mirror episode that was so weird and so weird. There's a lot that we can have fun doing on the weekends. And then on Monday, I'll be doing, obviously, the public lectures. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I try to do a 30-minute lecture on those days. So, you know, but those are public. Those aren't just for you, the patrons, who I deeply appreciate. I wanted to thank you all again because you have seriously kept me alive, and I mean, like, we would be homeless without you all. So I just really appreciate that, and thank you all so much, and I hope that these lectures are fun for us all, and that we all have a blast doing them, and we all learn a lot. Like I said, I'm probably going to sign off soon, but if anyone has any questions, please feel free to leave them in a comment on the Patreon post, or leave them in a comment on the video. Video's just for you anyway, so, you know. We'll early access it. We'll make it public after like a week or something. We'll do something like that. I don't know. I'm still figuring it out. Anyway, I hope you all have an excellent night. Thank you all so much for your patience as I set up. Thank you for joining in and for your comments. And you all are super great. Thank you especially to Kathleen and to Rosie for being in the chat. You all are awesome. And I'm gonna go do the thing. As a reminder, on the other side of the screen, you can see essays that I've been sharing from tonight, including Leah Kent's Fighting Abjection, my own essay on Schrodinger's Fat Girl, Marilyn Wants Forward in the Fat Studies Reader, and Fanny M. Bjorsen's essay in Fat Anthropology of an Obsession Talk. Anyway, thank you all so much. Have a wonderful evening, and I will see you patrons next week, or if you're at the live lectures during the week, I will see you on Monday. Have a wonderful night.